So we want to discuss problem number 9, homework. This basically gives you an absolute value function and asks you to find the derivative. So first problem is relatively straightforward. It simply says x is less than negative 4 over 8. So think about it. If that's the case, then 8x is less than negative 4. 8x plus 4 is less than negative 4 plus 4, which is 0. That is to say, whenever you want to find the absolute value of 8x plus 4, you are talking about absolute value of some term that's negative, since the absolute value of it is negative 8x plus 4. Therefore, your original problem for x less than negative 4 over 8 is mathematically equivalent to negative 8x plus 4, okay? So the derivative of this function is f prime of x for negative 8x plus 4 taken derivative is negative 8 times x takes derivative plus 4 takes derivative. It's negative 8 times 1 plus 0, hence it's simply negative 8. So that's the first question, and the rest part is slightly more complicated because they are talking about the derivative at a very special point, which is negative 4 over 8. If you observe your original function, you realize if you plug this number in, your input is exactly 0, and you know absolute value function flip the behavior, flip the graph at the point of 0. So if you were to plot the graph negative 4 over 8, the graph of your function looks like this. So based on our description in class, technically I hope you realize already the derivative does not really exist, and let's try to prove that. So this said, could you please find the left side, what's the derivative, the right side, what's the derivative? So let's just go ahead, do our calculation following the definition. So part number 2 says, could you please type calculate the derivative, but go approach it from the left side. So I'm approaching send h to 0, f of x, this is I want it to be negative 4 over 8 plus h minus f of negative 4 over 8 divided by h. And they did say explicitly I want to approach it from the left side, so you are approaching to 0 from left side. Well, let's figure out each of those pieces one at a time. So first of all, if you were to find what's f of negative 4 over 8, according to the problem, it's 4 plus 8 times negative 4 over 8, which is absolute value of 0, which is simply 0. So this term is quite straightforward. It is 0. And because you stated that 0 approaching to h from negative side, so it's negative number, negative 4 plus h is adding a negative number to it. It's less than negative 4 over 8. So we said it already, if you plug a number that's less than negative 4 over 8 into your function, plug something less than negative 4 over 8 into your function, you are talking about taking an absolute value of something that's negative. Hence, you are supposed to flip the sign of the function when you do the evaluation. So technically what you have is h approaches 0. Let me just copy paste it one more time. Negative 4 over 8 plus h minus, we said that's 0 already, so I don't need to keep carrying my 0 along my calculation. The other thing I said, if negative 4 over 8 plus a negative number, you end up with a something that's making your absolute value to be negative, since the function is flip the sign. Absolute value expression always asks you to flip the sign of your input if that's a negative expression. So I divided by I'm sorry, what is my function one more time? I'm sorry, I was a little bit sloppy. My function was 4 plus that, so it is 4 plus 8 times your input. Your input was negative 4 over 8 plus h, right? And then you don't need to copy paste your 0. So what I did from here to here is I have my function as negative of the input because my input was negative number. So I substituted this into my function, which was negative 4 plus 8 times the expression. So what I end up with is limit h approaches 0 minus negative 4 and then minus 8 times negative 4 over 8 plus h divided by h, which is limit h approaches 0 minus, it's negative 4, it's plus 4, it's minus 8h, it's divided by h. The first two terms cancel out, the h cancels out, so what I end up with is negative 8. So on the left side, you can see my function goes down, and as a matter of fact, the derivative I identified is negative 8. So let me come back and fill it in. The first question is negative 8. The second question is negative 8. And I want to find my right side limit, so I'm going to do some similar calculation. So let's try again. I want to find the limit as h approaches 0 for the function at the point of negative 4 over 8 minus negative 4 over 8 divided by h. And this said I want you to approach from the right side. I'm talking about right side limit. So h is approaching to 0 from a positive side. This term, as I calculated in my previous problem, f of negative 4 over 8, if you plug it into your original function, you end up with 0, so I don't have to write it down anymore. Negative 4 over 8 plus h is, if you were to multiply an 8 and add a 4 to it, it is 4 minus 4 plus 8h, it is 8h. And this term clearly, if h were greater than 0, it's greater than 0. So if you take the absolute value of it, it's just simply itself. So when I try to rewrite this first term, it's simply going to be equivalent to 8h. I want you to try it yourself as well. So h approaches 0 plus. The first term end up with 8h, take absolute value, which is still itself, minus 0 over h. If you do the cancellation, you realize the final answer is supposed to be 8. So what I end up with, it's 8. This is left side, this is right side. The derivative calculation is not identical, so I can't really find the derivative of my function. So in general, my comment is that if I approach to negative 4 over 8 from the left side, as long as I don't touch this point, I would have a derivative because that's technically a linear function. But if you include this point into my discussion, I would say, okay, I don't really have a derivative everywhere because this is a special point. There's no derivative there. So along the same line of thinking, I can draw my conclusion. If I have negative 4 over 8 through infinity, it's differentiable. But if you include negative 4 over 8, because this boundary point doesn't really have a derivative, so I cannot claim it's differentiable everywhere.